Hi, I'm Cindy Cohen. In this leader conversation, I'm speaking with Meg Kammerud, General Counsel to tech startups. Meg brings a unique perspective on leadership through the lens of risk, responsibility, and decision making. Hi, Meg. Thanks for being here.
Hi, it's great to be here today, Cindy.
So I asked Meg to choose one question that leaders rarely talk about openly. Meg, you chose.
What is the difference between management and leadership? And when I think about the answer to that question, I think about management in terms of the how, like how you're going to accomplish your goals, both for your team and then for the company at large. And for leadership, it's more strategic. It's a question of where is this team going? Where is this company going? And how are we going to get there? Um, But the where is the first question for the leader. And making that transition can be difficult for people, particularly in larger organizations. I've come through, a public company on the legal as a legal team member that was larger and more established. So we were in a position where there were a lot of managers, and those managers, some of whom were succeeding very well and being groomed for leadership roles, had to make that transition between um, action and strategy. In contrast, most of my career I've spent in the startup space, and in the startup space, companies rely on strong leaders day one because the startup has to understand where it's going. Everybody has to be facing in the same direction, and those leaders have to be strong leaders so that they can understand the where, and they can also understand, does the where need to change? Do you have to pivot, and how do you pivot? But the where is the real question and the drive for everybody. It becomes the mission for the startup and for the team, top to bottom. Um, as startups grow and develop, and my experience where you go from sort of one lawyer at the startup to a team of lawyers, to a team of people, to larger teams where you don't want to be siloed, but you do have to have realms of influence and responsibility, then leadership management becomes more important, but you never want to spend so much time, if you are a leader, focused on the day-to-day pieces that you lose sight of that where and that strategy and the corporate plan, if you will. So you have to balance that as a leader within growing companies. A challenge I've seen is moving from when you're moving from manager to leader, is moving from a focus on sort of a checklist of responsibilities and OKRs or goals that your team has to meet that quarter, where you're like, we need to rewrite this contract and close this deal and do this, to a leadership where you want to think about how each of those items fits into the larger plan and the where of, yes, we want to close this deal, but if we close this deal and we sign a contract with very bad terms, or if the deal has very bad financial terms for the company, but does get us revenue, maybe that's good today in terms of the management and the goals that are set there, but it's not true leadership to let that go by if you understand that it's going to cause problems for the company down the line in relation to setting precedent with customers that's not helpful for the company, or causing issues when you're doing due diligence for your next funding round or in the M&A context. So the two pieces have to fit together, and a lot of us and smaller, even smaller and even more established startups have to balance wearing both those hats. You have to manage, you have to get things done and reach your goals, but you always have to do it with an eye toward the where the company is going and where your team is going and where the individual members of your team are going.
Wow, great perspective. What stands out to me in your answer is that the difference between managing and leading isn't about authority or experience. It's about how someone shows up when judgment, responsibility, and people all intersect. If this resonates, follow along for more conversations like this.